Of course I think we can win, and I'm fighting every single day to win.
We've now put forward a plan that... Is that bird worrying you?
Yeah. They're afraid of us. They can see that our movement is growing.
Well, you're not going to have a stand in the Parliament.
Let there be 1,000 lessons learned as far as I'm concerned.
This is the 4ZZZ Break the Election podcast for the Queensland state election in 2024.
Hello and welcome to the 4ZZZ Breaks the Election podcast, just 18 days from the 2024 Queensland state election. My name is Lauren Bartholomew. I'm a journalist at 4ZZZ and I'm filling in for Alexis Pink today. Joining us on the podcast are...
Michael Williams.
And Arissa Austrian.
In this podcast series, we'll be bringing you up to date on the election and breaking down what is being said and why. In the first story, Michael Williams will be talking about the major parties' power policies. Cost of living is among the chief issues this election cycle, and homes and businesses are feeling the power pinch.
Well, over just 5 days ago, Premier Stephen Miles announced an elected Queensland Labor government would establish a second energy retailer to compete with existing energy producers and retailers. Since then, battle lines have been drawn between the two major parties, with opposition leader David Crisafulli banking much of his policy rhetoric on fixing failing coal power stations, such as Biloela's Callide B. Miles' plan would increase choice among retailers, but it would remain to be seen whether that would lower prices. But meanwhile, Crisafulli's plan to fix and continue the Callide B power station has caught the ire of climate groups. We know that Queensland Conservation Council slammed the decision as the Callide B station is slated to cease production in 2028. And this is to quote a campaigner by the name of Stephanie Gray. She said that if Queensland LNP is serious about climate action and reducing Queensland power bills, the last thing that they should be doing is plotting to keep retiring coal power stations open longer than their use-by date.
So there's also been a spotlight on whether Crisafulli will back Dutton's plans for nuclear energy. What have we last heard on that?
Yeah, it's a topic that keeps being brought back up in the media, in that federal opposition leader for the LNP, Peter Dutton, is pushing heavily for nuclear power stations, including 2 here in Queensland. And David Crisafulli, once again, after being pressed by the media, has remained adamant that he would not support it. So if both leaders were to get into power, it would be interesting to see what would come about that. Would we see increases to coal production or nuclear? That remains to be seen. I know that people in the opposition probably don't want either of those policies, but nonetheless, that seems to be where the battle lines are drawn.
So I've been following the LNP's new promise for the state's health budget. So on Monday, the LNP pledged an extra $590 million for the state's health budget and to bring down ramping to under 30% in 4 years if elected. Queensland opposition leader David Crisafulli outlined the 3-phase plan, diagnose, treat and cure, which will include real-time health data, ending the maternity bypass in some of the state's rural areas, and employing more than 34,000 healthcare workers by 2032. This comes after the April-June report from the Queensland Health this year, which shows nearly 45% of patients were not transferred off ambulance stretchers within 30 minutes. If re-elected, Labor says it will reduce ramping back to 28% as it was pre-COVID if re-elected, but provided no time frame. Minister for Health and Mental Health Shannon Fentiman took aim at Crisafulli and said he is all talk. He's just trying to slip into government without actually having any tangible policies. I mean, look at the health so-called plan today. It's a genesis of a health plan. It involves slashing 1,200 beds. Meanwhile, the Premier and Fentiman unveiled the new Crisis Stabilisation Unit at the Prince Charles Hospital earlier this month. The $14 million short-stay facility will provide specialised and intensive care for up to 3 days for patients experiencing a mental health crisis.
Why has Crisafulli not set his own new hospital bed targets for the upcoming election?
It's definitely Crisafulli's wishes to match Labor's bed targets and to also fulfil his promise of accountability, which has been the forefront of his campaign this year. One of the quotes that we saw from his press conference yesterday was, "We've got a target, and that is to ensure that the last few years of malaise and lack of planning can be fulfilled."
With this plan for recruitment, what is the plan for retention?
This is the unanswered question that a lot of healthcare professionals have been pondering on. So what are the incentives for nurses, and what will the LNP do to improve their working conditions? And more importantly, where are these people coming from as well? Like, we have a specialist shortage. How are they going to fulfill on that?
And that's all that we have for 4ZZZ Breaks the Election podcast today. For more updates, you can find us on 4ZZZ in our morning bulletins, Brisbane Line on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays at midday, and make sure to catch the Pineapple Rebellion at 9 a.m. on Fridays. If you want to support the project, subscribe to 4ZZZ. You can do that at 4ZZZ.org.au/support. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll be back tomorrow. Bye!